Okay, let's talk about Jeffrey Epstein. We all know the official story, right? A monstrous, predatory figure. But the sources we're digging into today, well, they paint a very, very different picture. So we're going to explore this alternative view, one that frames Epstein not just as some lone criminal, but as a key piece in a massive hidden global network. The official story just leaves so many things unanswered. And that's really where this whole alternative theory begins, with a central mystery that just doesn't seem to add up. And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Why, in a world where politicians agree on almost nothing, do they seem to agree on keeping these files secret? The sources we're looking at argue the answer isn't just about protecting a few powerful people, it's about protecting something much, much bigger. And this quote right here, it gets to the absolute heart of the theory. What if this whole horrifying operation wasn't just about abuse? What if its primary purpose was actually a sophisticated blackmail scheme designed to compromise and control some of the most powerful people on the planet? This brings us to the actual scope of what Epstein was allegedly doing. See, the sources argue that to really get the blackmail angle, you have to look past the crimes we all know about and see a much, much larger criminal enterprise. So, here's the crucial point according to this theory. The sex trafficking, as vile as it was just one tool in a much bigger toolbox. It was supposedly all tangled up with international arms dealing, laundering money for the global elite, and a systematic operation to gain leverage over anyone and everyone who mattered. And how did he allegedly get away with it for so long? The sources call it playing the box. The idea is brutally simple. If your crimes also implicate people who are, too big to fail, you basically make yourself untouchable. The sheer chaos and embarrassment of exposing them becomes your ultimate shield. This really lays out the two competing stories perfectly. On the one hand, you have the mainstream narrative, a depraved lone wolf. But on the other hand, you have the theory from our sources that Epstein was basically an asset, a contractor running a massive honeypot operation for intelligence agencies. So, you gotta ask, how does a college dropout even get into a position like that? The sources point to his bizarrely fast rise through the highest echelons of power and finance as a major red flag. I mean, a rise that seems almost impossible without some very powerful, hidden backers. Just look at this timeline, it's pretty wild. He drops out of college. A few years later, he's teaching in an elite school, hired by a guy with ties to the OSS. That's the precursor to the CIA. Then he jumps to Bear Stearns and makes partner in just 4 years. And then, right when he's in hot water with an SEC probe, he resigns, supposedly on the advice of a law firm connected to the guy who's just about to become the director of the CIA. The sources argue this isn't just luck, it's a pattern of someone being protected. And that pattern of powerful friends in high places leads directly to the core allegation from the source material, that Epstein's entire operation was tangled up with international intelligence agencies. And when you lay out the network like this, it's something else. You've got his first mentor from the OSS, the future CIA director's firm, Ghislaine's father, an alleged Mossad agent, an infamous arms dealer from the Iran-Contra affair as a client, and a former head of Israeli military intelligence just hanging out. According to the sources, this isn't a series of coincidences. This is a web. And here it is, the specific claim that tries to tie it all together. The sources allege that Robert Maxwell saw Epstein's unique skills and basically recruited him into the world of espionage to help manipulate high-stakes international arms deals. Okay, so if a network like this were real, you'd probably expect to see some pretty serious signs of a cover-up, right? Well, the sources point to a string of highly suspicious events as potential evidence of exactly that. First up, there's Jean-Luc Brunel. He was the guy who allegedly supplied many of the victims for Epstein. So he gets arrested, and right before he's set to testify, he's found dead in his cell. Now, the official story is suicide, but for people looking at the bigger picture, the timing was just a little too convenient. And then you have the case of Mark Middleton, the aide who allegedly got Epstein his access to the White House. His death was also officially ruled a suicide, but the details that the sources point to are just bizarre. A shotgun blast to the chest, and he was found hanging from an extension cord. It's strange. And it's not just the deaths. The sources highlight some major weirdness in the investigation itself. Why was Epstein's massive Zorro ranch in New Mexico never ever raided? And why on earth, after this huge high-profile arrest, did authorities wait a full month before searching his private island? That's a lot of time to clean up. So, what does this all add up to? Well, the sources suggest that maybe we need to zoom out, stop looking at Epstein the man, and start looking at the larger system of power and control he might have just been one part of. This quote really puts it in perspective. It positions Epstein not as the mastermind, but as just one piece, a microcosm, of a much larger machine. In this view, his downfall wasn't because the system suddenly grew a conscience. It's because his operation just got too public, too messy, and too risky for the very system he served. And this, right here, is the ultimate conclusion drawn by the source material. It presents a world where there's a hidden faction using operations just like Epstein's, a mix of blackmail, finance, and intelligence to consolidate their control on a global scale. And that really leaves us with the final, pretty chilling question that this whole narrative poses. Was Jeffrey Epstein just a one-of-a-kind monster who managed to game the system? Or was he, as these sources suggest, simply a window that got cracked open, giving us all a brief, horrifying glimpse into a hidden system of power that's been operating in the shadows all along?